Hi, this is Heather Earles, and welcome to episode 13 of Urban Wisdom and Natural Living. Hey everyone, Heather Earles here. Thanks for coming on today's episode. This week, like every week, I'll be talking about natural living and healthy tips that will get you to rethink how you live and what products or habits you can easily change to better your life. So let's get started. Using fresh and dried herbs is our topic today, but before I get into the heart of it, I'm going to give you a brief overview of when it is best to use dried versus fresh. All right, dried herbs will never equal fresh in providing nutritive value. That doesn't mean dried herbs have no place in the organic world. The opposite is actually true. The need for dried herbs equals that of fresh because of time, living, and availability. So when to use dried herbs? When winter covers the ground for half the year like it does where I come from. When you live in an urban setting with concrete walls, maybe you don't have a yard or a garden. When you want to keep your healthy diet or routine while on vacation. And convenience. So dried herbs work perfectly in these instances where fresh herbs might not be possible or available. All right, when to use fresh herbs. There's no bad time, in my opinion, to use fresh herbs. Fresh will give you the highest quality of medicinal, aromatic, and flavor. Now it's just an overview of when you can use either. Now we're going to get into the heart of it, starting from the beginning of knowing your herbs. Any experienced gardener or herbalist will tell you that getting to know your herbs is the first step to growing an herb garden. This will ensure you know what you're doing when it comes to making your own tea, poultices, or tinctures. Very important. Tammy Hartung, an herbalist from Colorado, says this: it's better to know many uses for one herb than one use for many herbs. Herbs are versatile, and starting with just a few, a person through imagination and experimenting can start creating incredible tasting beverages. Once you're more familiar with multiple herbs, that's when you can start making medicinal formulas. Until then, I would suggest sticking to the basics. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So here's some helpful tips to create an herbal tea. When starting to make herbal teas, these are just a few things to consider. Get to know your herbs, grow, how they grow, smell, and taste, all right, like we just talked about it. Which ones will blend well and which ones won't, okay? Not all flavors go together. Have a plan or a goal. For instance, you may want to make a tea that helps with headaches, or you might want to make a refreshing tea to enjoy on a hot summer day or a cold winter night. Before you start, kind of know what it is you're trying to accomplish with your tea. As a base, use the stronger, more dominant flavors and then add a secondary but not so powerful herb. This will help create an interesting aroma and flavor. And then I write the blends down in a journal so you don't forget what you've created, and when you've hit a masterpiece, so to speak, you can, just get any blank journal, start writing down, okay, tea for headaches, first try, or however you want to put that. All right, finding the perfect blend. That's what we all try to do, right? To find the perfect blend, you need a list of herbs and spices that you can mix and match, so you can create and start to make your blends, okay? If you go to heatherearles.com /using fresh and dried herbs, I have a list on there. It's just a rough list of like rooty and tart, spicy herbs, citrus, sweet, licorice type, okay? Or you can just look it up online to try to see what herbs you need to make different tastes. So getting the herbs, most of these herbs can be grown in your garden and would be the best way since you will get the freshest herbs. If you can't do that like we talked about because you live in an herbal setting or urban setting or something other than that, your local market or health food store are other options. But always remember to look for the best quality herbs that are grown organically. I always ask, okay, do you put any sprays on them? What do you use to growing them? Because the quality of your tea will depend on it. All right, gathering and harvesting the herbs. This is if you have your own garden. The best time of day to gather herbs from your garden is in the morning when the dew has evaporated. If you're planning to dry your herbs, make sure they are not wet on the plant. If using them fresh, it really doesn't matter. You can pick them anytime. While harvesting, be sure to groom any dried leaves off or cut the tips when they start to flower. This will keep your plants healthy and vibrant. I always do a little grooming every time I go out to pick. It's just a good habit to get into. You can use a basket to gather your herbs or another container that allows ventilation. All right. Also use a pair of scissors, making sure you get a clean cut. Be sure to leave a couple leaves or a couple sets of leaves on each stem so your herbs can continue to produce. You don't want to kill the whole plant in one cutting. All right. If you're using herbs for their aromatic properties, the best time to cut them is right before they flower. At this point, the highest amount of oil is in the leaves. Okay, so using your fresh and dried herbs. Fresh, after harvesting, rinse fresh herbs with cold water and air dry or pat dry with a paper towel. Bruise or chop the herbs and put them in your teapot to boil. That's all you need to do. For dried, measure the amount of dried herbs needed. Keep them out of direct light as they will last longer and hold their properties. Okay, this is how to dry herbs now. Using the oven, okay, once you've harvested them, brush insects or dust the herbs off. Heat in the oven at no more than 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Leave the oven door open, as some leaves dry faster than others, and you really want to keep an eye on this so you're not just over drying. All right, if you're air drying or hanging herbs, be sure when drying, it is in a cool, non-direct sunlight place. Also, make sure it is free of insects and moisture. When hanging, place a small bunch of herbs together and tie with a cord or a band of some kind. And if you have insects or dust, I would suggest putting a paper bag over the herbs and punching holes, because that'll prevent the moisture mildew from building, but also keep the dust and insects off. You can also use mesh bags. They have bags on Amazon or other places where you can hang them, and it's in a mesh bag with zippers so bugs and other things can't get in there, but it just creates the air that can go around. All right, you can also use racks. Spread your herbs out evenly and leave spaces so air can flow in between. So how long does this take? It just depends on your climate. Obviously, if you're doing it in the oven, it doesn't take very long at all. If you're air drying, it can take 3 to 7 days. Using the hanging rack method, that I just talked about. So how do you know if your herbs are fully dried? Good question. When pinching a leaf, if it crumbles easily, it's dry. If the leaf still has a bend or does not crumble, it needs more time. All right, it's not rocket science. If it crumbles, it's dry. If it doesn't, it's not. So now that we have dried our herbs, how do we store them? Herbs, when properly stored, will last 1 to 2 years, so this is important. Be sure to date your jars so you know which ones to use first. Glass or metal is the best to store your herbs. I prefer glass, and I order amber glass bottles. Again, if you go to heatherearls.com/fresh and dried herbs, I have a link there which will take you to a site where they sell these amber glass bottles. It took me a while to find it, so helpful tip, go to that site. All right, because this will help prevent light and keep the herbs' vitality if you use these amber colored jars. If you don't have amber colored glass, be sure to store in a dark area out of direct sunlight. All right, double check to make sure your herbs are dried so mold will not start. Use an airtight container to keep insects and dust out. Okay, put them in a jar and make sure it's sealed properly. Immediately after drying your herbs, they should be stored, okay? You don't want to, if they're dry, don't leave them for an extra day or whatever. If they're dried, store them right away. Okay, this preserves the oils, texture, flavor, and the color. Check your jars frequently to make sure there is no condensation. Be sure to separate your herbs and label each jar, also very important. And again, store in a cool, dry, and preferably dark place. A cupboard or pantry is what I use. So now freezing your fresh herbs. Some people don't like to dry or take the time, so they want to freeze. And this works well for some herbs like lemon balm, mint, rosemary, and dill, just to name a few of them. You pick the desired herbs, wash with clean water, and pat dry. Chop or leave whole. Place the herbs in a Ziploc or airtight bag. You can also put herbs in ice cubes or butter before freezing. All right, just another option. And you pull out when needed and enjoy. So given all that information, you now know enough to start your own small herb garden, kind of when to use the herbs. And to take it a step further, I'm going to include a tea recipe so you have something to look forward to once your herbs are ready for harvest. Okay, I'm going to do that at the end. First, I'm going to talk about using flowers, roots, and or the seed. Okay, so flowers are best harvested when they are the most lovely and smelling amazing. Waiting too long past their prime will give you less quality. When removing, lightly shake the dust off and remove any insects. To dry, follow the same instructions that I just talked about for drying herbs. If you are drying loose flowers without their stem, the paper bag method is great. Just be sure to shake the bag 1 to 2 times a day, allowing for airflow, and then lay them on a rack where air can circulate around them, also ideal for rose petals and other type of petals that are delicate. Okay, and some types of flowers I'm talking about are like lavender, where you can bunch them up and air dry them, okay? All right, using the seeds. Seeds are best gathered when they are barely ripe. This means when they are starting to look brownish. If you wait too long past that, they're going to just blow all over your yard and you'll see them growing next year. So early morning is the best time to pick your seeds. Cut the entire seed head and drop it into a bag, or you can cut the whole plant and put it upside down in the bag. Put it in an airy, warm place, but shady spot, and let the seeds fall to the bottom of the bag as they dry. Seeds, when stored properly, can last 4 years. They have a natural coating protecting the inside oils. I kind of like to compare it to eggs. You know, if you don't wash eggs, they have a natural coating which will preserve the egg inside. So, okay, let's move on to using roots. Some roots need to reach maturity before cutting and or digging. This could be years in some cases, so be sure you know your plant, kind of like the herbs, and or find out if you have already planted and are not sure. Okay, horseradish, like other root plants, are best harvested in the fall. When harvesting, gently dig up the plant, shake off the dirt, cut off only what you need to, you want to be sure to leave enough root to keep the plant supported and growing, okay? Again, just like the herbs, you don't want to kill it in one harvest. So place the plant back in the ground, you know, tamp around so it's stable. I always like to give it a little bit of water after I've cut some roots off also. All right, now with the roots you've cut off, wash in cold water, trimming off any little tubers that have started on the side of the main root. Okay, these don't have a lot of nutritious value, so we just cut them off. Split the root in half and chop. Keep them coarsely chopped and then dry. This way you'll preserve the flavor instead of just mincing them right away. So once dry, you can powder them in a coffee grinder or other machine and store as you would your herbs. Roots will last 2 to 3 years when properly stored. So as I promised, I am going to give you a tea recipe, and this is by Janine Pollock. It's called Languid Lemon Stress Away Tea. This tea is delicious, iced or hot, and can be enjoyed daily. It's wonderfully nourishing and supportive, toning and strengthening the whole nervous system. All right, before I get into it, 1 part means equal amounts, just for those of you who this is your first time. So you need lemon balm lemon balm leaves 1 part, lemongrass leaves 1 part, lemon verbena leaves 1 part, oat straw 1 part, passiflora leaves 1 part, rose hips organic 1 part, skullcap leaves 1 part, orange peel organic 1/8 part. You're going to combine all the herbs in a pot and cover with boiling water. Stir well, cover, and steep for 15 to 20 minutes. Steeping the rose hips preserves the vitamin C better than decocting does, okay? So that's the tea recipe. You have it. It will relieve your stress, and it will give you herbs you can start planting. Maybe that's the tea recipe you want to go for, and you just plant the herbs that I have said, and or pick your own to start. Again, fresh and dried herbs can be used to promote health, for use in culinary dishes, and for aromatic pleasure. They're natural and, in my opinion, the best way to help your body naturally. They are not hard to grow, but they do take time and patience. Like I said, you have to be willing to groom them, water them, care for them, just like you would anything in your garden, especially when you're making remedies, okay? It takes patience. If you are new to the herb world or have now just decided to dig a little deeper, into making your own teas and things like that, I really hope this article helped you and will be a guide for you as you learn more and take steps to becoming a gardener for your health and body. All right, if you have any questions about fresh or dried herbs, just shoot me an email at heather@heatherearles.com. That's heather@heatherearles.com. And you can just say, hey, I didn't understand this part, or you want to dig a little deeper talking about tinctures and stuff like that, which I will have episodes later on. So again, I hope this has helped you. If nothing else, you will learn more about what other people do and why we live the way we live. Catch you next time. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Urban Wisdom and Natural Living. Tune in next week where I'll broadcast live every Monday morning at 8 a.m. If you miss it live, hold those tears and head on over to my blog, which is heatherearles.com. That's Heather, EARLES.com. There you can have 24/7 access or right here on iTunes. If you want to follow me on social media, you'll find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. Have a healthy week.